know what we came to do.
Hey,
You know
man.
what we came to do. Look, I'm in a league of my own. Y'all need to leave it alone. I'ma just eat everything. I'ma just leave you the bones. Call it an even exchange. There ain't no need to explain. Yeah, it should be overstood. Like when I hop on a plane and I fly over your hood. Y'all should be knocking on wood. Don't make me go against the grain. I ate my Wheaties, I'm good.
What's the deal, college football fans? It's your boy Kelly Flicks, and we're back with a midweek episode of HBCU Flicks. So when the season starts, we'll be doing this Thursday thing. I don't know what we're doing today. It's going to be an episode. I'm not sure if it's going to be 30 minutes, 15, or 5. But we do have to talk about SWAC Media Day. SWAC Media Day just happened this week. I wasn't able to make it, but there was some great coverage of it. You know, we got to see HBCU Game Day. They killed it. My BCSN also killed it. Shout out to Dr. Cavill. Shout out to Steve Gaither down there at HBCU Game Day. So they kept me up to date, you know what I mean, with interviews, with what's going on. But the SWAC also put out some things. They put out their predicted order of finish, and they put out their preseason players of the year. And I'll be the first to say, we was wrong, y'all. We was wrong. We've been hitting. But we did not hit here. We missed on both offensive and defensive player of the year in the SWAC. Then, as always, we got our 2-minute drill. And I saw last week, our 2-minute drill last week was like 11 minutes, man. We got to get better at that. We got to get better, guys. So, talk about what we did wrong, all right? So, I chose Jarvian Howard from Alcorn State to be Offensive Player of the Year, and I chose Isaiah Major to be Defensive Player of the Year. Neither was true. What is true is Jeremy Moussa was Offensive Player of the Year. I would like to remind y'all that Cali quarterbacks run the world. You know what I mean? This Chino Hills player transferred to FAMU last year and has since has somewhat, I would say, run the SWAC kinda-ish, right? So the top quarterback of the SWAC last year was Shedeur Sanders. He leaves, goes to Colorado. The next best thing is Jeremy Moussa. Some people may argue Andrew Body, but, I mean, I think stats don't lie in this situation, and Jeremy Moussa looks way more comfortable in his offense than Andrew Body looks in his offense, keeping it real. So defensively, though, here was the talk around town, was around Sundiata Anderson. All right, so Blue, my boy Blue Bloods on the show, just said that Sundiata Anderson is looked at as the number 3 FCS prospect in this year's draft coming up. If you don't know, that probably makes Sundiata Anderson the number 1 HBCU prospect in this year's draft coming up. I think that he was chosen as Defensive Player of the Year by the head coaches and SIDs and the SWAC based off of respect. Based off respect. I don't think it was the numbers. Isaiah Major at middle linebacker had more tackles for loss than Sundiata Anderson. Colton Adams, Bubba Adams, had more tackles for loss than Sundiata Anderson. Zarian Hayes, who was also invited to SWAC Media Day, plays defensive line also, had more tackles for loss than Sundiata Anderson. It wasn't about the numbers. To me, it was about the respect that he garners from other coaches, from opposing teams, the way that other teams are game planning for him. Coach Hugh Jackson just said that Sundiata Anderson just got up to 250 pounds. If you don't remember this past offseason, the big question was about Isaiah Lynn, the big defensive end from FAMU. The questions surrounding him was his weight. Apparently, he was playing during the season around 200 pounds. That's not a defensive lineman that's going to play in the NFL. But with Sundiata Anderson being 250 pounds, we just got to kind of imagine a little bit his potential and also what his draft stock is going to be. It's going to be pretty highly touted. Now, who do I think should have won? Hey, Bubba Adams, Alabama State, definitely should have been Defensive Player of the Year. It's going to put a chip on his shoulder. He keeps getting snubbed. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird a guy of his caliber at linebacker continues to get snubbed. So I think Bubba Adams is going to have another big year. He had 100-plus tackles this year. Not sure how he doesn't get the nod as Defensive Player of the Year. He does make SWAC Defensive First Team. So that's something to be proud about. But as far as being Defensive Player of the Year, Bubba Adams definitely would have been my pick. Sundiata Anderson, I understand, coaches, with the respect. And look, at the end of the day, guys, this isn't the format that we think it should be. This isn't based around what we think should be the Defensive Player of the Year. This is based around what the head coaches in the SWAC and the sports information directors think. Whatever we think is supposed to be the award winner, it's not. They base the criteria off of what the coaches think and SIDs. So it kind of came to a point to me where it's like, well, I can't fight it, right? And Blue also brought up another great point, which is should the coaches still vote for things like this if the coaches aren't able to see the other teams and the other players as much as they would like to, because week by week they're game planning. And I mean, honestly, I agree, man. All right, so speaking of different players that got snubbed, let's go and take a look at our first team offense first, right? I'm talking about defense. Well, fuck it, let's go defense. We'll talk first team defense first. So of the first team defense, so I can't have 2 second team defenses. There we go, right here. This is it. So here's the first team defense. As you can see, the first team defense, the DBs was the most eye-opening, right? We're looking at like 4 different corners right now. At defensive back, you got a couple guys. You got Kendall Bowler, you got Omari Hill, and make that a little bit bigger. Omari Hill, you got Jordan Carter, and you got Javon Morgan. This is weird, right? You got a FCS All-American in the SWAC. His name is Adrian Maddox. He didn't make the first team All-SWAC team, but he made All-American at FCS. Very weird. Super inconsistent. SWAC. I mean, some things just had to be fixed. He's a first teamer. By far, he's a first teamer on defense. All right, but then anyway, look at the linebackers. Linebackers make sense, right? You got Colton Adams in there, Bub Adams. You got Lewis Matthews. 2 of these guys together both had 100 tackles each this year, by the way. Then you got Isaiah Major, my pick last week for Defensive Player of the Year, which I think is one of the best linebackers in the SWAC, man. He can do everything. Then defensive line, I had no problems with this list right here. Looked pretty good to me. We got Malachi Bailey out of Alcorn State down here at the defensive line. Looks very good. Looks primed to be the guy. He looked humongous. He came to SWAC Media Day. He looked humongous. He was bigger than damn near everybody there. All right, then we got Sundial Anderson, the beast, the number 1 draft prospect in HBCU football this year. We also got Taj Brown. He's a returner, comes back from Southern. He's one of the only starters returning from this Southern defensive line, and I think he's going to make a big impact on the game this year. All right, and then we got Zarian Hayes. Zarian Hayes was probably overlooked a little bit last year because Alabama A&M's defense just wasn't that good. But at defensive line, his numbers prove the film. You know, you check his numbers, you go, man, his numbers are pretty high. What's that about? We watch him on film. He pops on film. You know, he's a very quick defensive lineman. I think he actually might be able to play a stand-up linebacker role moving forward and at the next level. All right, but yeah, with the first team defense, my real issue was the DBs. Why is Adrian Maddox not there? So let's see where Adrian Maddox did end up landing, and that was on second team defense. Here he is there, second team defense. Get it together. Like do better, guys. Like I just sometimes these SWAC awards I get a little upset at the fact that I feel like not all the players get their just due, and when other publications rank these players very high and the SWAC somehow just doesn't value them as much, it's really befuddling, right? So the rest of the guys, we got Kale Jackson, Kevin Thomas, Christian Davis. I know my boy G ranks Christian Davis as one of the top defensive backs in the SWAC. So it's worth noting. Linebacker-wise, look pretty good. Got Rico Dozier in there from UAPB. Good for UAPB. Didn't know they had that much talent in there, honestly, and good to see Rico Dozier getting some love. Then we got Terrence Ellis, a guy that I thought really could have been a first-teamer for the SWAC. I think he's a first-team defense type of guy. He's that type of caliber. He almost had about 100 tackles last year. I think if somehow just get him on the list, man. This whole top 11 thing, I'm not a big fan of. I'm really more of a fan of understanding the defense and what it is like in today's football game. Like, just these simple 11, this is more based off of obviously 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. This is based off a 4-3 scheme, right? In today's game, the 4-3 scheme, I'm not even sure if the 4-3 scheme is like 4-3 formation is like your base defense. But in the spread offense, you're not going to be able to run around with 3 linebackers all the time. A lot of times you're going to run around with a nickel corner, which means you're going to drop a linebacker. So it's like, with these different SWAC teams, these first teams and second teams, bro, let's mix up the formation a little bit. Let's add a position or so just to make things right, you know, or if you have to make a third team, do it to make things right. But Terrence Ellis is not a second team player. He's a first team player. You know, the fact that there's only 3 linebacker spots means that he's out, but add a 4th linebacker spot for him. Like, I feel like some of these things are like, you should just do them right. All right, so anyway, let's go for our first team offense. The first team offense, also some wobblers in there. Some wobblers. Our second team offense. Then it looked like the first team, don't it? So let's talk about the first team offense. So the first team offense, led by Jimmy Moussa, Cali quarterbacks run the world, of course. Got Donovan England back there, running back, a great running back for Alabama A&M. I think he could lead the league in rushing yards this year if it's not for this guy I'm about to name, Jarvian Howard. I picked him as my SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. I think he's still primed for a big year, even though he doesn't get the accolades that he deserves. I think he still has a big year. Now, here's our wobbler at receiver, right? They throw in Derek Morton, wide receiver from Texas Southern. Andrew Body's wide receiver. Don't see how this really happened. You know what I mean? I get it. Derek Morton is very potent, right? He's your gadget guy on offense. You can move him around. Very small guy. He's agile. He quite honestly makes a lot of plays for Texas Southern offense and keeps it going. I like that. But the best wide receiver in the SWAC is Lyndon Rash. I'm not really sure any other language I could say it in. I mean, and another guy that's right there is Marcus Riley. Marcus Riley transfers over to FAMU. I don't know if the SWAC coaches, SIDs, thought FAMU couldn't sweep at wide receiver and get Marcus Riley and John Marie Sheree, but that would have been fine with me. I probably would have voted something like that. I probably would have voted Lyndon Rash and Marcus Riley as the first team offensive wide receivers. Let's put it how it is. Now, Lyndon Rash is, to me, the best wide receiver in the SWAC. He does it all. He can stretch the field. He can take the ball from 0 yards and really provide game-breaking plays. He's a guy who just put the ball in his hands. With Lyndon Rash, to me, he's proved a lot last year. He had a lot to prove. He was back there with 4 different quarterbacks throughout the year. As a wide receiver, a former wide receiver myself, understanding that each quarterback gives the ball different and gets the ball out different deliveries, different arm slots, different preferences and route running, it's a very hard task. To still amass plus 500 yards with 4 different quarterbacks throughout a losing season where you go 3-8, that's really when teams aren't good, that's a lot of reason for a wide receiver just to fade to the back and go for 25 catches in a couple yards. Lyndon Rash stepped up, still tried to lead the team throughout the year, still tried to lead the team to wins. A lot of these big performances from Grambling involve Lyndon Rash and Maurice Washington in particular. So I think Lyndon Rash definitely needs to be a first-team SWAC guy. And by the end of the year, I'm sure he'll prove it. The lone Jackson State guy, DJ Stevens at tight end. Really, tight end in the SWAC is one of the worst positions, quite honestly. I think that really in the SWAC, not a lot of teams use their tight ends. I know Coach Maurice Harris at Jackson State is going to start using DJ Stevens and using more tight ends, packages, and things like that, which is good. But for the most part, not a lot of teams use tight ends. Offensive line-wise, 2 FAMU guys up there. I mentioned last week with the MEAC Media Day, they had 2 Howard guys up there. Having an offensive lineman on an All-American team or preseason All-Conference team is helpful. Quite honestly, every one of these HBCUs are constantly looking for great offensive linemen to amass great offensive linemen together, right, and keep them together is a feat in and of itself. We're looking at a FAMU team that also brings in a 5-star offensive lineman. They have something going for them, right? All right, so moving on from offensive line, we'll go to the second team offense. So with our second team offense, they got some of my favorites, some of the guys I just mentioned. And also, these lists here, these are provided by the SWAC. But this graphic, this is HBCU FC, man. Shout out to HBCU FC. I've already hit up, bro. But, bro, what he does with all of his graphics, with his different highlights on Instagram, keeps you up to date with HBCU football nonstop. I see his page is growing. Shout out to him. Museum graphics, bro. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So, quarterback, Andrew Body. Andrew Body is one of the favorite quarterbacks for any SWAC fans. If you talk to a SWAC fan and they're talking quarterbacks, they're going to bring up Andrew Body. He has the swag. He has the look. He has the size, intangibles, the speed. I think he's just missing an offensive coordinator. If he was with the right offensive coordinator, I think Andrew Body could be looked at as the best quarterback in the SWAC. I think now people think of him as one of the best or the best quarterback in the SWAC simply based off of potential. And I don't play this potential game. I play what you did, what you're doing now. I think Andrew Body could be a great quarterback in the SWAC. I think second team status is reputable. I think he should have got that. Now, in taking this next step, we're going to see how he gels with this offense, if he can utilize all of his targets, and really if he gets opened up like his freshman year. I really want to see the Andrew Body from freshman season. All right, so you got Ja'Cory Howard, His running mate back here, running back is also a second-team offense guy. Top running back, I like him a lot. Great speed. Ahmad Antoine, also another good running back from Prairie View A&M. I get it. He stayed there, so he gets the call at running back, and I can't argue with it. I like it. Prairie View A&M was a run-oriented team last year. He was a catalyst in that. Trayvon Connolly at quarterback didn't have to throw a lot, and that's because Ahmad Antoine was handling business on the ground. So here we go. My boy Lyndon Rash down here at wide receiver. Lyndon Rash is a first-team wide receiver. Lyndon Rash is, in fact, the best wide receiver in the SWAC. He's the best wide receiver in the SWAC. This year, I think he'll prove it. He'll have a consistent quarterback. Miles Crawley should be his guy. With that being said, Miles Crawley has a big arm. Miles Crawley 6'5". Lyndon Rash is very fast. I think that's a match made in heaven. A guy with a big arm and a playmaking wide receiver is going to make for a lot of yards and really a deadly combo. We saw that last year with Jeremy Moussa and Xavier Smith. I think this year we'll see it with Miles Crawley and Lyndon Rash. Marcus Riley, a guy I just talked about a little bit earlier, transfers over to FAMU, Florida A&M. He's going to replace Xavier Smith. I think if anybody can do it, it's Marcus Riley. He's been proven. He's battle-tested, playing at Bethune-Cookman for the past 3 years with another top target in Kamari Averett. So he's played with some top guys. He's battled through adversity, and really what Bethune-Cookman has been in the SWAC has been abysmal. They haven't been competitive at all. He's played on a very bad team. I don't think his talents have been exploited as they should, and I think at Florida A&M he'll have a chance to really show his skills. He'll be on a winning team, a winning program, playing winning football, and quite honestly, he could be shifted into the number 1 spot. We'll take a look as the season progresses. Kamari Young, another Florida A&M talent, playing tight end. I like him, a speed guy. At tight end, very low volume. Understanding that tight end isn't a very utilized position in the SWAC, but he makes the second team. Offensive line-wise, you see a mix of guys from different schools, and don't really get into offensive line too much. All right, so we got to the first team offense, first team defense. So let's talk about our breakdown. Well, actually, no. I think it's actually time to talk about our predictions. So this year they also did predictions. They predicted the SWAC West, SWAC East, right? They did it last year too. So in predicting the order of finish, here is the SWAC East predicted order to finish. Very spicy. I must say, you guys, very spicy. Of everything that I saw at SWAC Media Day, this was the most eye-opening because I saw Jackson State receive 2 first-place votes. They received as many first-place votes as Mississippi Valley, guys. It's a tough pill to swallow if you're a Jackson State fan. A little bit of, I would say, it's kind of like some truth serum. Whereas you think you'd be the favorite, but understanding the reality of things, you wouldn't be the favorite. Last week in my predicted order of finish, it was exactly what this order of finish is here. We're correct on that, guys. Florida A&M was picked as first, Jackson State as second. Now, my reasoning for having Florida A&M at first and Jackson State as second is simply because the rest of these SWAC East teams, I still don't feel like have caught up to Jackson State, Alabama State, and Florida A&M. I kind of don't. All right, Alabama A&M, you kind of are in the ways. I can see you. You have recruited the type of talent that can win the SWAC, right? But defensively, are you there? I don't think you're there yet. At quarterback, are you there? That's still a big question. It's been a big question since Akil Glass, so I can't count you guys in here. But a team like Alabama State, who has amassed a lot of talent defensively and offensively, despite their losses, looks to have a chance to contend for the SWAC East. Jackson State, a team that's lost 65 players. Yes, they lost 65 players. They brought in around 65 players also. They brought in previous FCS All-Americans like Esias Guthrie. They've retained certain talent around the edges like Jalen Marshall, Kevrick Wiggins. Offensively, you bring in guys like Seven McGee. So I'm hopeful this Jackson State team will still compete for the SWAC East division title. But I think FAMU has it by a long shot. I think after Florida A&M plays Jackson State, if they get the win in the Orange Blossom Classic, I think they will. I think they'll win the Orange Blossom Classic. If they get the win there, the rest of the season is a cakewalk. It's a cakewalk. Because last year with Jackson State, when they played in the Orange Blossom Classic, they beat Florida A&M. It wasn't a cakewalk because the next team up was on your heels. They're on your heels. But if Florida A&M beats Jackson State, I honestly can't see Jackson State only losing 2 games this year, Texas State and Florida A&M. I can't see it. I can't. I think they're honestly a 4 or 5 loss team. So with that being said, if Florida A&M beats Jackson State, they essentially have won the SWAC East. There's more winning to do. I understand. There's more winning to do. You have to beat the rest of the teams in your conference. You can't slip up against Valley. You can't slip up against Bama State. You can't slip up against Bethune-Cookman at the end of the year if you're Florida A&M. I understand it. But you're in the driver's seat if you can win your game 1 in the Orange Blossom Classic against Jackson State. So Jackson State being this low, or not being this low, not being picked to go first, understandable. Florida A&M looks better. Got to be real about this. Florida A&M looks damn good. They bring back the quarterback that is the best quarterback in the SWAC. They bring back most of this defense, dark cloud defense. The only person, you lose a couple guys, you lose Isaiah Land, Kamari Stevens. Okay, I get it. She return a lot. All right, so I think, and lastly, so SWAC East, when it comes to SWAC East, I think this year is a changing of the guard, guys. I think we're changing the guard to Florida A&M. Florida A&M and Coach Willie Simmons have won 9 games in their last 3 seasons. 9 games. They have no SWAC championships to account for that. They have no Celebration Bowl appearances or wins to account for that. Nothing. But one thing that hasn't changed is the work. Coach Willie Simmons has continued to bring in more talent, has continued to stay very competitive, has continued to beat every other team in the SWAC except Jackson State for the past 2 years. Coach Willie Simmons and Florida A&M is on the cusp, I think, of taking control of the SWAC. If you can win the SWAC East this year and get a chance at the SWAC championship, I think it will ultimately tell us that Willie Simmons is now one of the best coaches in the SWAC. Florida A&M has now begun their era of reign for the SWAC. But before that, they have to win games, right? So the fact that I always kind of put that caveat on things is the fact that, you have a whole conference to play. You have a conference schedule. And the SWAC traditionally beats each other up a lot. You don't make it clean out the SWAC, right? Jackson State found a way to do it, but you don't usually make it out clean. You end up leaving with a couple losses after conference play. So the SWAC East has gotten much worse than it used to be. Much worse. Teams somehow have regressed. I don't think Bethune-Cookman is as good as last year. I don't think Mississippi Valley is as good as last year. I don't think Alabama A&M might be just as good as last year, right? I don't think Bama State is as good as last year. I think they could regress if their quarterback situation doesn't get better. So, in looking at this conference, this division, Florida A&M and Jackson State have to be licking their chops, rubbing their fingers around going, man, I can't wait to play these teams in conference and get a win. So let's go to the SWAC West, right? So the SWAC West was nothing like my predictions at all. That was the polar opposite. The polar opposite. So we got this one wrong, right? I picked Prairie View A&M to win the SWAC West. Head coaches in SID selected Southern to win the SWAC West. So they have Southern, Alcorn State, Texas Southern, Grambling, Prairie View A&M, Arkansas Pine Bluff. So number 1, this is a slap in the face to Prairie View A&M and what they just did last year. They don't believe in Trayvon Conley. I've been saying that, but the coaches just told you that. Because Prairie View A&M has been in the SWAC championship or almost in the SWAC championship. Well, let's put it plain. In 2021, they were in the SWAC championship. 2022, they were 1 game out of the SWAC championship. And you mean to tell me that this year they're going to drop to 5? Why? I think that these other coaches don't trust Trayvon Conley. They think even the teams that lost to Prairie View A&M probably think they can beat him because Trayvon Conley only threw the ball 7 or 8 times, 12 times. You usually think you can win a football game if the quarterback only throws the ball 12 times. So I think that a lot of these coaches and these SIDs think there's going to be a big target on Prairie View A&M's back from last year and the way they won games last year. It wasn't the cleanest. It wasn't the cutest. I didn't like watching it at all, but I continued to watch because Prairie View A&M continued to pull out wins. Now, 2, Alcorn State was picked. I picked them to go 2. So I really essentially, in this list, I had Texas Southern somewhat swapped with Prairie View A&M a little bit, right? Prairie View A&M finishing a little bit higher, but Texas Southern finishing a little low, around 5, and then, Prairie View A&M finishing higher. So Texas Southern here at 3. This tells me that the coaches in the SWAC value Andrew Body. This tells me that they think that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the SWAC. If you look at this list, you could probably rank the quarterbacks on this list. You could probably rank the quarterbacks on this list, and you'll rank the predicted order of finish. I'm not sure if Hero Blood's the best quarterback in the SWAC, so that may not be the best example. But other than Hero Blood, when you look at it, number 2, probably Tyler Macon, 3, Andrew Body, 4, Miles Crawley, 5, Trayvon Conley, 6, unknown. Sounds about right. Now, I think we can get – I'll finish Texas Southern and we'll talk about Southern. So, Texas Southern, they got 1 first-place vote, so, people aren't that optimistic about them. But I think these coaches – see the improvement in Texas Southern and what they did last year with the young guys, and honestly feel like this year they have a chance at it. So it's understandable. Now, I didn't get into Southern too much to get into Southern. So with Southern, this is a respect thing with Coach Eric Dooley. I don't see anything other than this. Last year, Southern made it to the SWAC championship. I think this year the other coaches think that Southern could do it again. They lose a lot up front from last year. A lot up front. Offensively, they look pretty good. Not sure who's going to be quarterback, but offensively they look pretty good. But up front would be my only question. But this to me, I don't think Southern's going to finish first. I don't think Southern wins this division. I think it's Alcorn's division to lose. Prairie View division to lose. I don't really see this falling out like how they have it fallen. So you got Grambling in there. I spoke about them before. Then Arkansas Pine Bluff down. They finished down there. Okay. So we got through mostly everything. Let's do a little position breakdown. So with our position breakdown, here we go. We got FAMU, Florida A&M, getting the most preseason All-Americans in the SWAC this year at 10, followed by Southern. Alcorn State's there at 6. Texas Southern at 6, which is honestly pretty good for Texas Southern, man. Shout out to Texas Southern for getting that many. And then Grambling at 5, Bama State at 4. Now, if this was gone purely off of talent amassed in the SWAC, this looks about right. I'll probably put Grambling a little bit higher, but this seems about right. When it comes to the most talented teams in the SWAC, these are of the teams. Jackson State could probably be in here, but we got to see what a lot of these players do in the SWAC. They are improving, simply put. I agree with this talent-wise. The fact that Jackson State can only put 1 guy on this list hurts emotionally. But if you're being realistic about things, if you're Jackson State, I couldn't imagine any guys from Jackson State making this team other than DJ Stevens. There aren't too many other guys I could think of. As I've been saying the whole show, I expected this. It may feel like a slap in the face to Jacksonians, but honestly, I expected this. Some of your best players are transfer players. Let's be real. Some of your best players on your roster are transfer players. The guys you want to brag about the most are transfer players. The Jason Browns, Esias Guthrie's. Those are some of your best players on the team, in my opinion. So they aren't going to be on this list because they aren't SWAC eligible. So this has been my breakdown of SWAC Media Day. I kind of feel wrong for not talking about Grambling a little bit more. Let's go back. Let's talk about Grambling a little bit more, man. Shout out to Graham. Shout out to what y'all been doing. They got Graham finishing at 4, man. Let's talk about Graham. So Grambling at 4, to me, they give a little bit of respect to Coach Hugh Jackson. He finished at 5th last year, so you get a little bit of a bump. There's not much expected from this Grambling State team. If Grambling State was to make a move at the SWAC championship, this would probably be a great year to do it because nobody sees it coming. Nobody. I don't think there's one head coach in the SWAC that would tell you that they think Grambling is going to be in the SWAC championship at the end of the year. For the most reasons being their inconsistencies. Last year, they outplayed a lot of teams in the first half. They played great in the first half. In the second half was where they found most of the problems. That's when things would really slow down for them. Now, that partly was because they had a young quarterback at times. That partly was due to turnovers. Some of it was game management, offensive play style. A lot of these things worked against them. There was even times in the Jackson State game where I feel like their offensive play style even worked against them at times because of the fact that their speed was hurting their defense more than it was helping their defense in that hot Mississippi heat. So this year, I think that Coach Hugh Jackson will manage the team much better. Bring in offensive coordinator Coach Tony Hull. You clear a couple positions like quarterback coaching position and a couple other position coach positions. And I think that Grambling is honestly on the right path now. I think last year, like Coach Hugh Jackson said in his interview at SWAC Media Day with HBCU Game Day, he thought that he recruited a team that could compete in the SWAC. After playing in the SWAC is when he understood what it took to actually win in the SWAC. You got to see the players you're playing against. You got to understand the type of quarterbacks, type of defensive linemen. You got to see what the winners look like in that particular conference. I mean, you can almost equate that to what most Pac-12 coaches or what really USC and UCLA are going to go through and playing in the Big Ten. It's going to be a whole different playing style. And you don't know that playing style until you actually get out on the field and lace it up and go up against them and have to coach against a coach of that caliber that's used to playing against those teams in that said conference. So Coach Hugh Jackson definitely took some time to adjust to the SWAC offensive play, defensive play, roster-wise. And I think now he is on the right track and putting together a winning Grambling program. I think he put together a lot of talent last year. But I think now he's putting together a winning Grambling program. He understands what it takes to win in the SWAC, what the players look like, what the builds look like, what he can take advantage of. Because I think, quite honestly, Coach Hugh Jackson was going into the SWAC blind last year. He put together as good a staff as he could. He amassed as much talent as he could. But he was going into the SWAC blind. He had no previous experience coaching in the SWAC. All right. That's my Grambling rant. I think Grambling will be so much better this year. They open the season against Hampton. I might do a whole episode talking about that. I've been going back and forth with people on Twitter about it and how I think that Grambling can honestly blow the doors off of Hampton this year. I'll dedicate a whole show to that, promise. And then lastly, from Grambling, we'll talk about Arkansas Pine Bluff. All right, so Arkansas Pine Bluff, to me, have no expectations. I don't expect them to win many games this year. They open the season against Tulsa, if I'm not mistaken. Their coach came out, Alonzo Hampton. Was a pretty cool guy. Good to hear from him and hear what he was about. And really what he was about was recruiting high school players. He was adamant about staying out of the portal and staying in high school recruiting circles. He said even when he took the job, he didn't decide to let go a bunch of players or release their scholarships, cut them, as you may see. You may see around the college football landscape, a lot of different football players are being cut. You'll be cut from your scholarship at the end of the year. It can really happen. Like the end of the spring could happen after spring ball. Coach call you in his office, and he decides to cut you and pull your scholarship. That can happen. But Coach Alonzo Hampton said that he didn't want to do that. He wanted to evaluate every player that was left over from the previous staff during spring ball. So he watched everybody. Now, did he make cuts? I don't know. I'm pretty sure he made some cuts, right? He didn't bring in many guys, though. He had a very small recruiting class. I think Coach Alonzo Hampton's picky. He's not bringing in 60 guys like Coach Woody down in Bethune-Cookman or Coach T.C. Taylor down in Jackson State. He wants his guys. He's very particular about this. Now, I'm not sure if being a perfectionist in this area in your first year as head coach is going to help or hinder you, but we've seen it both ways, right? We've seen it both ways. We saw Coach Eddie Robinson down at Alabama State not bring in much talent at all other than, he did bring in some talent. He brought in Levante Chenault, and he brought in Demetrius Davis last year. He brought those two guys in, along with the other guys, but he didn't add very much to this Alabama State defense. He didn't. They still last year went around like 6-5 or 5-6. Now we're looking at an Arkansas Pine Bluff team that's also taking the same path and not over-recruiting or not hauling in a mass amount of guys and cutting a lot of guys from your team and really transitioning slowly from the previous regime. I'm not sure if this helps or hinders, right? You still lose certain guys like Monroe Beard off the edge. That helped a lot. You still lose like Kayvon Britton, your top leading running back last year. So you do lose some key guys, and maybe not hauling in a bunch of guys like Hugh Jackson did last year will help your team. But you want to be competitive in year one. And as a head football coach, the faster you are competitive, the better chance you have of keeping your job, keeping it real. Slow playing it might not help you in this situation. Sometimes you got to rebuild the team as fast as possible. If Coach Hugh Jackson slow played it last year and not brought in very many players and kind of played with the past regime, look, if you would have ended the season 3-8 last year, Coach Hugh Jackson, with that old roster from the previous head coach, it's going to take longer to transition into bringing in your guys. The key to being a good head coach is bringing in your guys as fast as possible. If your guy is on the team, if a player's on the team and it looks like somebody that could be your guy, you keep him. But other than that, you want to bring in as many as your guys as you want, right? That's what's going to win games. Bringing in receivers is going to stretch the field when you have an offense that's built on stretching the field. Bringing in speed running backs when you have an offense that's based on read option, zone read schemes. That's what you want. So you got to play to your advantages. And I think Arkansas Pine Bluff, they must just see what they must like what they have, and quite honestly, Coach Hampton must think that he can work with it. He can win some games with it. So be interested to see how that goes for him. It's going to be tough in the SWAC West, probably one of the toughest divisions in HBCU football. That was my reaction to predicted order of finish. So we did the West, did the East, first team offense, first team defense, preseason breakdown. We did it all. So that was my episode this week for HBC Flicks. We did a double episode this week. Gave y'all 2 episodes. And I'm still looking to get an episode for y'all on Monday. Not sure how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it, though. I'll give y'all something. Even if it's only 10 minutes, I will give y'all something because I am going out of town this weekend. So Monday going to be a little tough for me. But look out for it, man. This is HBC Flicks, SWAC Media Day Recap. Thank y'all for tapping in. We appreciate all the subscribers. We just hit 200 subscribers last week, and now we're already up to almost 220 subscribers. Please tell a friend to tell a friend. Like this video. Share this video. Stay tapped in with us. We got In the Field coming throughout the week. You know, we'll be on the video games. Battlefield 2042. We just played that last night. Super dope. Got a bunch of viewers on there. And earlier in the day, I played some WNBA. Played some 2K. So, man, tap in with us. We got so much content coming this fall. Thursdays might be my thing, man. I don't know. We'll see. Peace.